It doesn't seem like a traditional show that I would talk about, but I remember growing up in the 70s and 80s, and always remember hearing about communism and thinking, what's the big deal? It's another way of running a nation. But, as an expert in marriage and family, it has become all too understandable now why we must fight that and how that infiltrates all of our families. For those of you that are very interested in saving your family, saving your marriage, it's easy to do once you know what the enemy looks like. And we all know ultimately the enemy is Satan. So one of the things that Satan has done to destroy the family is develop this idea that another political thought is okay. But I want you to understand why communism is absolutely a godless form of governance, and it is and has been infiltrating our country and our world. I'm speaking as an American, but I know that this is true for so many of you watching in your respective countries, because it was Our Lady in 1917 to the children at Fatima who said, unless Pope consecrates Russia to her Immaculate Heart, Russia would spread its errors. Okay, spread its errors. What's the big deal? And the errors were told to be communism. But why was this such a big deal that Our Lady would say, we must fight? This will lead into the of end of this era, end times. But her Immaculate Heart will triumph. But this is the evil that we're facing. So what I want to read to you is something that I recently learned about, is the 45 communist goals for America. There were specific goals. And this was read into congressional record in 1963, January 10th of 1963, by a congressman whose name was Albert Herlong Jr. So he read these so that it is public information and we can understand why it is so devastating and why we must fight it. We must teach it to our children. We must talk about it with our spouses. We must consider it when we go to the polls. But we must consider it when we go to church, because this is ultimately what it's attacking. This is what Satan wants. So I'd like to read to you some of them. I don't know if I'm going to get through all 45. Maybe I'll do a separate video. But just to quickly go through it, and please, I don't even think I need to ask you to be patient. It'll be short to read them. But I want you to understand how they are devastating your family, my family, our country, and how we can fight them. The first one, the U.S. should accept coexistence as the only alternative to atomic war. Okay, just coexist with everybody. Well, that's not what the Bible talked about. The Bible talked about when you had to go in with your enemies that were against God, you actually had to fight against them. But that's not the one I'm going to focus on. U.S. Number 2, U.S. should be willing to capitulate in preference to engaging in atomic war. And okay, none of us wants atomic war. None of us. And so that's part of what the communist plan is, to teach us that, you know what, you should give up on it. But well, let me just keep going. We do need to know when to fight. Number 3, remember the communists said, develop the illusion that total disarmament by the U.S. would be a demonstration of moral strength. Yeah, okay. But remember what Ronald Reagan said? His motto was peace through strength. Have the strength, have the weapons, so that when the enemy comes, they know, I'm not fighting with you. That's what we do in our marriages. That's what we do in our families. You develop strong families. You teach them, you educate them, so that anybody wants to fight against them, you're like, no, we will stand against your lies. Number 4, permit free trade between all nations, regardless of communist affiliation and regardless of whether or not items could be used for war. Not going to go into that. You get it. Number 5, extend long-term loans to Russia and Soviet satellites, right? They want our money. Number 6, provide American aid to all nations, regardless of communist domination. Okay, so we're going to give money to these nations, who will then give the money to the communists, who will then purchase weapons to kill us with. Number 7, grant recognition of Red China and admission of Red China to the UN. Number 8, set up East and West Germany as separate states in spite of Khrushchev's promise in 1955 to settle the German question by free elections. Remember, this was read in 1963. And you can consider what's already taking place. Number 9, prolong the conferences to ban atomic tests because U.S. has agreed to suspend tests as long as negotiations are in progress. I'm trying to get to the very important ones about marriage. Number 10, allow all Soviet satellites, individual representation in the UN. Number 11, promote the UN as the only hope for mankind. So we're seeing now this one world government. America, forget your laws. Let the UN govern us. Consider that. America is the greatest nation on the earth. Sorry, those of you from your other countries. I'm sure you think that about your nation, as you should. Nationalism is a good thing. But Americans should be saving other nations, not capitulating to evil. Number 12, resist any attempt to outlaw the Communist Party. Number 13, do away with loyalty oaths. You don't have to be loyal to anyone or anything, not even your spouse, not your country. Number 14, continue giving Russia access to the U.S. Patent Office. Number 15, capture one or both of the political parties in the U.S. And we see that they've captured one absolutely for sure, and the other, it appears that we have enough communists in there as well. But number 16, use technical decisions of the courts to weaken basic American institutions by claiming their activities violate civil rights. So use the decisions of the courts to weaken America, which means they have to get people in the judicial system. Number 17, get control of the schools. And we see today that the communist infiltration into our schools is having our children take the state as authority and say parents don't know enough. Oh, if your child is born one gender, but they feel that they are the other, the school will act as if they are the caretakers of your children. Well, it seems that that one has happened as well. It says, get control of schools. Use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda. Soften the curriculum. Get control of teachers and associations. Put the party line, the Communist Party line, in textbooks. Number 18, gain control of all student newspapers. Number 19, use student riots to foment public protests against programs or organizations that are under communist attack. Number 20, infiltrate the press. Get control of book review assignments, editorial writing, policy-making positions. Number 21, gain control of key positions in radio, TV, and motion pictures. Number 22, continue discrediting American culture by degrading all form of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substituting shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms. I've seen that since I was a teenager. Number 23, control art critics and directors of art museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. I know you think that that doesn't matter, but go study the value of art and its connection to God and the ugliness to a connection to godlessness. Number 24, eliminate all laws governing obscenity by calling them censorship and a violation of free speech and free press. You can't outlaw pornography. Number 25, break down cultural standards of morality by promoting pornography and obscenity in books, magazines, motion pictures, radio, TV. It's done. They have done that. You can't turn on anything in the mainstream without seeing pornography, full-bodied sex, and the like. Number 26, present homosexuality, degeneracy, and promiscuity as normal, natural, healthy. I taught in the university for years, and my students would say, why abstain? We're all going to have sex anyway. because the communist mindset was taught, infiltrated your school, your parents will pass it on to you. That wasn't what was always taught. Number 27, infiltrate the churches and replace revealed religion with social religion. Discredit the Bible. Emphasize the need for intellectual maturity, which does not need a religious crutch. Sounds familiar. Didn't Satan say something similar? You don't need God, you just have your own logic. How many people have logicked themselves to hell? Number 28, eliminate prayer or any phase of religious expression in the schools on the grounds that it violates the principle of separation of church and state. That's where that came in. Never had that before. Number 29, discredit the American Constitution by calling it inadequate, old-fashioned, out of step with modern needs, a hindrance to cooperation between nations on a worldwide basis. And replace our nation of laws, not men, with royal decree emanating from appointed judges and executive orders. Have we seen a lot of those coming through these days? Replace elected officials with bureaucrats. Number 30, discredit the American founding fathers. Present them as selfish aristocrats who had no concern for the common man. How many times have you heard them talk about our founding fathers? They owned slaves, they didn't care. Number 31, belittle all forms of American culture and discourage the teaching of American history on the ground that it was only a minor part of the big picture. Give more emphasis to Russian history since the communists took over. Obliterating the American past with its antecedents and principles of freedom, liberty, and private ownership is a major goal of the communists then and now. Number 32, support any socialist movement to give centralized control over any part of the culture. Education, social agencies, welfare programs, mental health clinics, etc. Public ownership of the means of production, the core principle of totalitarianism. Number 33, eliminate all laws or procedures which interfere with the operation of the communist apparatus. Number 34, eliminate the House Committee on Un-American Activities. Don't study them. Number 35, discredit and eventually dismantle the FBI. Well, we're in the process of that right now. Number 36, infiltrate and gain control of more unions. Teachers' unions, auto unions, every union. Number 37, infiltrate and gain control of big business. Number 38, transfer some of the powers of arrest from the police to social agencies. Defund the police, sound familiar? Treat all behavioral problems as psychiatric disorders, which no one but psychiatrists can understand and treat. And I don't see it written here yet, but I will say, consider that the APA has stricken from the DSM-5 things that used to be considered mental disorders, and now it's like, no, they're fine. But you have to follow the psychiatrists and the psychologists because they know best. I'm so grateful that I never got counseling licensure. I am able to freely coach, spiritually direct people without having to worry about a license being taken away from me by someone who isn't really teaching truth anyway. Number 39, dominate the psychiatric profession and use mental health laws as a means of gaining coercive control over those who oppose communist goals. Number 40, discredit the family as an institution. Encourage promiscuity and easy divorce. Well, I guess they've done that already. Remember, our mother said the final battle would be for marriage and the family. And we now see how Satan is working hand in hand with communism, who also wants to dismantle the family. They need easy divorce so that there are no men in the houses protecting the women and the children. Number 41, emphasize the need to raise children away from the negative influence of parents. I just mentioned that earlier. Our schools. Your parents don't get you. We get you. If you think you're a boy, we'll tell you you're a boy. But don't stay under your parents' negative influence. Emphasize the need, I'm reading number 41 again, to raise children away from the negative influence of parents, attribute prejudices, mental blocks, and retarding of children to suppress influence of parents. Outcome-based education, values clarification, or whatever they're calling it this year is proof that they've done that. Number 42, create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition. Isn't that woman running for president right now? We have her on tape saying that. Keep on being violent and go on and do it again. Keep on uprising. The law continues. That create the impression that violence and insurrection are legitimate aspects of the American tradition, that students and special interest groups should rise up and make a united force to solve economic, political, or social problems. Number 43, overthrow all colonial governments before native populations are ready for self-government. Number 44, internationalize the Panama Canal. Number 45, repeal the Connolly Reservation so the U.S. cannot prevent the World Court from seizing jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over domestic problems. Give the World Court jurisdiction over nations and individuals alike. And they write, this would mark a complete subversion of our Constitution. Well, actually, that is written here as a response. This would mark a complete subversion of our Constitution and an end to representative sovereign government as we know it. That's what they want. I don't know if this is what you expected. You wanted a video on marriage and family. But until we understand the forces coming against us, we can't properly fight. Now you know how to fight. Go into the schools and fight. Go see how your family is being subverted. See how your marriage is being subverted. See how divorce is being pushed. See how your children are no longer looking at your authority. And fight for your family. Fight for your children. Fight for their minds. Fight for their hearts. Fight for their souls. Because communism ultimately is a God who wants to be in power, wants to take you away from the one true God. I, for one, am going to fight. Now I have better weaponry. And you can fight with prayer and fasting and the grace of God. Ask him how you personally are supposed to respond to this. Each one of us has a different calling. Each one of us is called to perhaps one aspect of what we just read. But don't give up and don't give in and do not surrender. You're stronger than you think because God plus one is a majority. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this Breakfast with Bacon. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.